Well, I wasn't plugged in. I'm thinking, what are you, going nuts in there or something? Hi, welcome to Mary Wieden You. Glad to have you along with us today. Today, the beginning of our long Memorial Day weekend in terms of the Highway Patrol. They're going to start their count of everything at 6 o'clock this evening, and they'll go until Monday at midnight. There are 2 don'ts and 1 do. Don't drink and drive. And don't speed. That's the other thing. And then the do is be sure to buckle up your seatbelt. Those are the main. That's the main thing. And that voice in the background, that is Ashby Foote. He is the Ward 1 incumbent, independent. You're the only candidate I know who's got 2 I's after his name. Independent and incumbent, right?
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's an exciting election season. I tell you, it's been.
What's it like
for the city? It's been dramatic. I mean, 52 something candidates running for 8 offices. Lots of drama. My gosh.
Yeah, really. How about, but this is new for you, having opponents, correct?
Well, I've had opponents in the past, but this is a more serious, a more engaged opponent. So I appreciate their willingness to jump into the political arena and offer their services to the people. So we'll see how it goes.
I've done people. I haven't done all the wards, of course, can't do them all. But the big one near you is Ward 7, which is such an interesting ward in a way because it starts at Meadowbrook and goes all the way down to Terry Road with the airport. Airport is in it for heaven's sake.
Yeah, the airport's in Ward 7.
Which is kind of weird. But yours, you have a pretty benign, not a very large district, not a large ward, and you don't have like the airport. You don't have horrible things.
It's like pretty much a big triangle with a couple of it's not a gerrymander, looking district like some are.
Yeah, and Lance, you've got the picture I sent you, right, of the ward.
I was going to put it up there.
Yeah, just so people can see it, what it looks like. You don't have a drastic change in things along your ward, do you?
We had to give up some property, some change our boundaries, shrink the boundaries because we were the most populous ward based on the 2020 census, and so we had to get. When you go through the redistricting every 10 years, we used the 2020 census as the basis, and we were the most populous ward, which meant in order to stay in alignment with the voting rights laws, the most populous ward has to be within 10% of the least populous ward, and we were way outside of that. So we ended up to shrink the boundaries some to give some more voters to Ward
7.
Wards
looks like.
Well, Ward 7 is
7?
Pretty good, but Ward 2, 3, 4, and 5 were way low. So we had to move things around so they got more citizens, and we ended up having to lose some. I hate that because I enjoy all the folks we get to know and represent during the course of a term. And so we shrunk our citizens, our number of voters by about 1,600.
Wow. You've got a strange, and we're going to get the thing on the air to show people what I'm talking about, too.
I have it up right now, and
oh.
it has it numbered 1 through 7, and it shows the airport is broke off of, so
right.
Mr. Foote is Ward 1 there, top right corner.
Right.
What's odd about you're down kind of in the southwestern part of your ward is 7 coming over to the east of Fondren, so that'd be 7, correct?
Right. We have the part that goes by the nickname of Leftover, which is from along Meadowbrook, south of Meadowbrook over to Ridgewood, and then down to Lakeland Drive. That's actually in Ward 7.
Yeah, it used to be.
Although it's east of the I-55.
Yeah, Leftover is that was part. That's what wasn't Leftover the one that was to the west of Eastover?
Right.
Yeah, and it was called Leftover, and supposedly the homes weren't as fashionable, but they are.
They're beautiful. It's the one over closest to the Mississippi School for Deaf and Blind.
Right.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
and it's got the district in it now, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of good things going. And
great gardens in there.
Great folks lived in there, and
well, you haven't seen mine. I got the finest weeds in town.
Hey, a weed is only a weed if you want it to be.
Well, how about those little Johnson weeds that stick up in your bushes?
That's true.
You can't
do anything with them.
Well, no, you just have to live. You can cut under the bush and try and get them, or you can cut the top every 5 minutes. Or you can just swear.
Hey, Mr. Foote, is when you're looking at Lakeland Drive, where obviously it comes in and dead ends right there in Fondren, it looks like you have the left side of Lakeland Drive. Is that right?
Well, I would say the the south side of Lakeland Drive is actually in Ward 1.
Right, south side. That's what I'm looking
So
at.
you go along there, and there's some few neighborhoods, and they've actually got a new apartment complex that was developed by Kane Ditto and his son-in-law, Justin Peterson, the Quarter House.
Oh, yeah, at the quarter. Yeah,
they took a lot of second-tier business buildings and made a really deluxe apartment complex there. It's got about 150 units, and it's leased up right away. It's really nice.
Yeah,
and so that's in Ward 7. I mean, that's in Ward 1.
That's Ward 1. So that's the one you're talking about, right, Lance? That new one by
he did a great job explaining that, because it's like Lakeland, south of Lakeland is Ward 1, and then you have north right there where it gerrymanders over a little bit. It's a great word you use there. I love that. I haven't heard that one in a while.
There's also some museums in Ward 1 that are along the road there that runs parallel to I-55.
You got all of them, pretty much? Do you have them all? Like
the Natural History Museum?
You got the History Museum, and then you got Children's.
The Children's Museum.
And what else is in there? Oh, there's another one in there. But anyway, then it goes across Lakeland, too.
And you got the Maze Lake and all that area.
If you got the stadium, you've got the stadium, the old stadium, right?
No,
that's not yours?
The Smith Wills is in Ward 7.
Part of that new area?
Well, it's the leftover area. So the Ag Museum and the Smith Wills are in Ward 7.
Okay, wow. Well, what are some of the salient points of concern in Ward 1? Your crime rate probably is decent. I mean, it's not great, but it's probably...
We're getting more coverage from the Capitol Police, and a lot of people appreciate that. We've got Precinct 4 provides police services for Ward 1, and although their headquarters moved from the Colonial Mart area last summer to over to the along the frontage road there, over where the AutoZone is and Mr. Chin's Chinese restaurant, they're behind there. But still, we get police services both from Precinct 4 and JPD, and also from the Capitol Police now. And I appreciate all the policemen we've got across the city, but regardless which force they're in, the more law enforcement, the better. And so that's, crimes obviously in public safety is a huge issue, probably number one.
I looked at the homicide rate. Of course, you can't judge everything by that. I looked at the homicide rate. There's one that you can find online. And for the year so far, it's 28, which is miraculous, because it's usually been 20 a month for the last few years, almost 20 a month.
It's been really, really bad.
So this is 28 for the whole year.
Yeah, keep your fingers crossed. I mean, this is, it's just it's an ongoing challenge. So you can't take your attention away from being proactive and
I'm glad you said that, because that affects everybody.
It does.
Whether you live in Ward 1 or wherever you live, crime affects everybody, and it behooves everybody to be very aware of it and go to meetings. If there are community meetings, I say do that. And if your church isn't hosting one, I would say that you could suggest that your church host one of those meetings. And I would also suggest that not just parents or relatives of good kids. Hey, what about the bad kids? Those are the ones, unfortunately, that you don't hear about, the parents and the kids. And if you could get some bangers in there to explain why they do what they do, that would be great. Because that's everybody.
Yeah, the other thing I would encourage people to do is when you see a police officer or a law enforcement officer, whether it's county or city or the Capitol Police, and you're out maybe in a restaurant or whatever, make sure and thank them for their duties. This is one of the toughest, most dangerous jobs in America, and the thin blue line protects us from it. It protects order from chaos.
Absolutely.
And we have to really be respectful of them, and they need to. They really appreciate it when people pat them on the back and give them a word of encouragement. So
yeah, they're the ones who go into something when everybody else is running away from something.
Exactly.
And domestic violence calls never change. They are always the most dangerous, because you don't know what's going on behind those doors until you get there, and that's the thing that's so frightening. So, you might think, oh, this will be nothing. I can handle this. You can't.
No,
an officer would never feel that way.
Really scary.
Very, very scary. But do you think that Jackson Police and Capitol together? Do you think that the city has enough citywide now? Because you are a member of council, and so you're in council. Do you think that the city has enough troops yet on the streets, or do you need more?
I think we can always benefit from more. The police presence is a key provider of public safety. Just the fact that police are around, whether they're in vehicles, on motorcycles, on horseback, or just walking their beat, being out there in the public arena, around the schools, whatever. All that police presence is a huge positive influence on public safety in a constructive way, and so the more police we can get, the better, and the more tools they have to do their job. A lot of new tools are available in surveillance and doing things that technology has some amazing uses as it comes to public safety and putting
cameras.
Gunshot catcher too.
Yeah,
that's the
right
one.
where they can put up these listening devices and triangulate from gunshots where they're actually taking place and respond to them in very quick order. You got license plate readers where somebody who steals a car.
You got all that in Jackson? You got all that?
And there's license readers, license plate readers being put up in more and more locations, and they've interconnected the systems across the country. So somebody steals a car in Madison County and they drive it down to Florida, and it goes through some license plate reader in Sarasota, and it'll go into the system, and they'll say this is a car that was stolen in Mississippi, last week, and go out and find the car because of all the technology, computer systems being deployed by law enforcement across the country. And so those are really great tools for the police to have in trying to solve crimes and track down people who are bad actors across the country.
And by the way, people will not see these cameras, and they won't know where they are.
They won't realize that their license plate was red, and they think they're free and clear.
Right, you don't know.
And they're driving down the street, and suddenly they get pulled over, and it's because of a license plate reader that, halfway across the country.
Haven't these bozos figured that out yet? That how can they get caught by?
There's some pretty
keep
tricky.
It up, don't they?
There's some pretty tricky people on the bad side of the law too. So that, they're not asleep at the wheel necessarily.
That's what I'm saying. The bad guys. They don't steal a car because you might get caught by a license plate reader, if not some other form of technology.
Right.
Which is the best. So do you have an adequate supply in Ward 1 of these things? I guess it's citywide of this stuff.
Well, I think we are getting some and deploying them, but you constantly have to be deploying the latest technology. So it's not something where you can just stop and say, okay, enough is enough. These things, as the technology improves and the software that drives it to solve problems improves, and you want to be on the cutting edge. So we get a lot of grants that come in from the federal government to deploy some of this technology. So that's very helpful because we have a limited budget within the city. But obviously, the Department of Justice does a lot trying to help the urban areas, deploy technology or the latest technology, and hopefully we'll continue to make advances in that.
Do you have yet your hands on exactly how much money Jackson has and exactly how much city employees are being paid? Because I understand from another council person from months ago, no, you could not get that information because of the current administration's policies. Do you now? Is that changing since?
Well, I hope. Well,
there'll be a big change.
The most exciting part of this election cycle was the month of April.
Yeah.
Because the voters spoke in a loud voice, and they made their...
You're going to get a new mayor.
And we're going to have a new mayor, a new administration, only about 40 days away. I think that's a really exciting development. People were very frustrated. They're tired of the drama and the conflict and the contention and,
all of it.
All that stuff that I think people were exhausted and wanted to move on. So we don't know who the mayor's going to be yet, but we know we're going to get a new mayor. So I think that's really exciting. And I think it's really important that we stay focused because there is a chance for a really big change in Jackson to shake things up. The voters have already shaken things up. So now the chance for turn the page and move on to, a brighter future for Jackson But we can't just sit and wait for it to happen. We got to be actively engaged as well.
Well, that's just it. And you don't know where you're going until you know how much money you have and who's out there working and how much are they being paid. If it's some dodo bird making $80,000 a year, you got to know that.
Yeah.
You have to know that. Do you know that now, or will you only know it after this administration closes the stores?
Well, there's been some revelations in the past 2 weeks or so that have been very disturbing and discouraging from the standpoint of people being put on the payroll that we're not sure if they were actually showing up for work.
Oh,
and people that given a job where it was clear that they were only going to be there for about 40 days and not.
Right, that's news.
Sure, yeah, and so the council took some action on Tuesday.
Some guy
3 days ago, a short-term ordinance to take all the pay rates for vacant positions down to zero, so that the mayor couldn't just appoint somebody to a job for the next 45 days and have them get the salary of anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 for that period.
Right.
And then be on his own come 1st of July. That was inappropriate, not fair to the citizens, and using more the city funds that really wasn't a value add there component to that. So we took that action.
You did that one on that.
It passed unanimously.
So, but you still don't know the answer to the question.
Well, there's still a lot of things we don't know.
Yes,
hopefully we'll find
city
out
council, not just you, but everybody on that council needs to know, and so do the public. But time will tell those things.
The council has the power of the purse as the way the government is designed, but then. If you don't know what's in your purse, it really diminishes that power.
Exactly.
How to open the purse and count the money, you've got that power is also diminished.
We'll be right back just a few minutes from now. This is Councilman Ashby Foote. He is first ward councilman, incumbent, independent, and we'll be back on the other side with Mary Wieden You. Stay where you are. Well, welcome back to Mary Wieden You. We've got Ashby Foote here in the studio running with opposition for the first time, apparently, right? As an independent, he is an incumbent, the Ward 1 Jackson City Councilman. You can call him up at 888-808-8637. Text him 601-879-4395 if you've got questions and comments about the first ward. Ward 1. But, as a member of City Council, of course, you're concerned about all wards. But,
sure.
Predominantly Ward 1, of course. And you can watch us at supertalk.fm/Mary on there. And so... we were talking about money when we went out. What's the deal with this contract for something going on across from the city council? Not the city council, but the complex downtown on West Capitol, Civic Complex or whatever that building is. There was a contract that was just let out to key constructors, I think it was, just this week to do. And there was some flap about that because, that's where their alleged whole bribery scheme was all about. But anyway, do you know what that contract is for?
Now that one, I'm not I'm not sure about that. I may have
might have been tied up with stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to talk when I'm not don't know the details of it. So let me pass on that right now. There are concerns about contracts going out with for a lot significant money right here at the last of the mayor's term when he's
this one was approved. This was approved by City Council. So I don't know I don't know what they're going to do.
There was approval of a contract to take out some concrete as part of the
taking out concrete.
It was some confusion about it because it was listed as a demolition of some space that was going to go into I think some down around Ferris Street, and the concern was whether that was part of our demolition money, because we are letting a lot of contracts go out for demolition of blight and dilapidated properties, which is a good thing.
Yes,
now I'm not sure if we're getting the best money for our dollar as far as the contracts, who they're going, and the bidding process that we're going through. But blight is a huge issue, and it affects everything else in Jackson because it's so big. I mean,
do you have some in your ward?
We do have a few commercial buildings. We got a few residential buildings, but when you go to the out into South Jackson, West Jackson, the blight undermines everything. It undermines confidence in the citizens. It makes the the job of law enforcement much more difficult. It makes the job of for the fire department much more difficult, and it just undermines the ability to attract investment into the city. So it's something we have to address, and we need to go beyond just the city's resources to really take it on. What we need is an industrial scale project to really take on this blight.
You do, so that, even if you go along, if you I-20 and then you come along, or your I-55 north and south, and you come on to I-20, and you see what the stuff you see, that all should be a showplace corridor. You really got to show off the city.
Right.
That's what tells a big story, because a lot of people don't know where downtown is, but you got to show off the city, and at least get rid of that awful motel or whatever that was.
Yeah.
At least that's gone, but there's nothing in its place. Jackson, as and I've heard from people who've been on the show, and I can't even think of who I said it, but Jackson is almost like a diamond in the rough. But it's in the rough right now. It needs to get the rough out there and get the diamond. It's got to show as a diamond.
And there's a lot of people out there, especially ones that don't live in Jackson. They've given up on Jackson, and I think that's a mistake. I think that's short-sighted to say, well, it's hopeless, and let's move on and just let it just fall apart in the inner side part of the city, along Highway 80, which is in tough places, and some of the areas along the interstate are in rugged places. But we got to remember that Jackson's been around for 220 years or 200 years, and it's been through a lot even worse than this. It got the nickname Chimneyville back during the Civil War, when they burned the city down 3 times. And so if we can overcome that, we can overcome this too.
Rome's got that Colosseum that's about falling down, but it hasn't hurt their tourism attraction.
Right. Yeah.
You can do that. It all can be done. I was real proud of last summer when Councilman Stokes was on here, and he named Jody Owens and Mayor Lumumba, and he didn't say the other person, but he named those 2 guys as about to be indicted, and he was right about that. Well, so that interview was posted on Nextdoor, and the one I get is the Rankin County version. And I thought, I always read comments. Comments are the best part of a lot of things. And I thought, boy, they're going to come out slamming Jackson. But they didn't. They were so many people, 95% of them were positive things about, Jackson needs to get rid of this kind of stuff. And, I grew up in Jackson, and, we don't like to see this town going down the tubes and stuff like that. Jackson can rehabilitate itself and all. And I was really proud of my fellow Rankin Countyans for that. I mean, I thought that was really great.
That's great.
Yeah, it was great. It's at least that portion of people who, do Nextdoor and listen to the show and did see, because the interview was played again. We're very much in favor of helping Jackson, not personally, but, help for Jackson. Don't let it go down.
Well, one of the upside surprises of being on the council for me is getting to know and work with Councilman Stokes. He is a really remarkable character.
He's extremely bright.
He's
and
a lot smarter than you'd think. Listen to him, and he's very insightful, and he really has a heart for Jackson.
Yes.
Loves his constituents, and remarkable politician.
Yes, and he grew up in that area because he talks about having grown up listening to the lions roaring at the zoo. So he lives over near the zoo, and he's extremely bright. A lot of people don't think he is. His expressions sometimes, but he's very bright. Yeah. He's extremely bright, and you're right. And his heart is in the right place, and he wants the best for the city.
He's very politically savvy too. He sparred with the mayor on a number of occasions, and I wouldn't want to get in a sparring match with Councilman Stokes because he knows where the lines are, where what he can say and get away with.
Well, he asked. I asked him. I said, at the time, I said, people think that you might be running for mayor. Are you going to? And he said, no. And I said, why? He said, because my son said, don't run for mayor because it'll kill you. And so he listened to his son. Because it's a heck of a job. It's bad enough being a council person. I mean, you got people calling you 24/7 because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be responsive to everybody, but being the mayor. But anyway,
one of the things that connected me with Councilman Stokes in a meaningful way was back about, I think it was 2.5 or 3 years ago, when in the middle of the garbage episode, the mayor got extremely exasperated and went out in the front, called a press conference out on the stairs of City Hall, went out there and accused me and Councilman Stokes of taking bribes because we were both voting the same way. And they must be taking bribes because, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And, Councilman Stokes, I didn't say anything. I just shook my head in disbelief. But Councilman Stokes went after him, and then it was further, lengthened as a long-term story when Rita Brent made a song out of it.
Oh yeah, I know the song.
And so that's history now. But it was a fascinating exercise, and Stokes and I often do vote along. We probably have about 90% of the time we vote at the same way on a lot of the issues.
Well, he has a law degree,
Yeah.
And he didn't practice law, but his wife certainly did. And I'm sorry I'm sorry for her loss, and I'm sorry I never got to her court because there was, people were saying, and it was said on various places, that if all the judges in Hinds County were as good as she, then you'd have a great judicial system.
Wow.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry I missed that, but he had to be good. He had to be good anyway because his mama brought him up that way. But he had a wife who was the judge, so he really had to be good. And I hope he's listening. If he's not, maybe Sherry's listening. I'll pass it along to him. But yeah. So about the garbage thing, are you happy with Richard's disposal or what?
Well,
got a contract for a while too. I think
they did the contract, and I thought it was a way too much drama for just a city contract. It is the biggest city contract the city puts out. It ends up being about $10 million a year, but it was the mayor and the administration did not follow state procurement laws when he did it, and that was one of the problems I had with it. He tried to railroad it through, and that didn't work. He tried to basically turn it into a hostage negotiation where we weren't voting for vendor A or vendor B, but we were voting instead on his vendor or no garbage pickup. And that's not really the way government's supposed to operate. That's not fair. That's just ends up being tyranny, not government. We're supposed to have the power of the purse, and he tried to maneuver the situation into a hostage negotiation where we had to vote for it, or the people wouldn't have garbage pickup at all. And that's really
crazy and wrong.
Bad.
That's awful bad.
It's bad government. It undermines confidence that the citizens have in us. It undermines confidence that the state and other people outside the metro area have in the city of Jackson. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons it was a high drama event. Turned off a lot of people. The media did a great job of covering it and all the shenanigans that were going on. And I think that's one of the reasons that the voters in April turned the mayor out.
Yep.
In such emphatic force.
Yes.
For Senator Horn to beat him 75-25.
Yeah,
that's
pretty
a really
amazing.
Repudiation of the mayor and his style of government, where he keeps all the information as tight as he can. He's not forthcoming with the city council on a lot of these matters. We end up having to vote on things or being pressed to vote on things with limited information. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be part of the renewal that I think we have the potential to undergo come the 1st of July.
That would be so exciting if there really was a unified city. People talk about, well, my native birth town of Detroit, haven't been there in years now, but Detroit is coming back. Okay, Detroit is like a gazillion times the size of Jackson. But if they can come back, then I think Jackson, Mississippi can come back. And I hope that this momentum that y'all feel, I hope it'll work. You've got to. You have to. Plus, it's time for people to realize, hey, now we can do stuff. We can do some good things.
Constructive things, and we can work with the people at the state that want to do good things, too. There's a lot of people at the state that at the state legislature I'm talking about, who just didn't trust the mayor he would be a good steward of the resources they gave him. So we didn't really get much, but that was mainly, it wasn't hard feelings towards the council or hard feelings towards the citizens of Jackson. It was concern that the mayor would not be a good steward of the resources that the state gave to us. We got another session coming up in next year, and I'm hoping that they'll be more receptive and we can have a more collegial working relationship with the government officials at the state.
Well, here, by that time, the new mayor will have taken place, and all the new people in the council will have taken place, and the incumbents will have taken their jobs by, 3rd of July or something? It's right in there. So you have, all July, August, September, October. You got 6 months to get your stuff together so that you can not only make a cohesive and wonderful presentation to the state, but there will be evidence that their money will be well spent.
Right.
That's the thing. What about water, by the way? I think Fuel, Mr. Fuel, is he in your district? The Fuel, I call him Mr. Fuel. Yeah.
The Fuel water plant's down in the S curve, and that is I think that's in Ward 7.
Oh, that's 7. You don't get that one. And then
the O.B. Curtis is just north of Ward 1. It's actually in above the County Line Road.
So he's not. Curtis is not in your district either.
No, O.B. Curtis is just across.
I know where it is. Yeah.
You can see it from the country club if you're out there on the golf course. It's right there, but I'm comfortable with the way it's set up with Jackson Water. It's important that we get good, reliable water, and I'm not in a big hurry to try to change that relationship.
We'll be right back. Stay where you are. Final segment coming up on Mary Wieden and You. One of these days, Lance, I'm going to send you a song by Chris Lake. Well, it's not a song so much as a piece by Chris Lake. It's called Deceiver. But the big part of it is, but the thing of it is where he goes, "What you talking about? Talk. What you talking about? We need to have that
for us. Yeah.
We need to have that one. All right, back with our final segment. It Flies, as always, with Ashby Foote, Ward 1 councilman. He is an independent. That's why he wasn't on the ballot, everybody. The independents were not on the primaries.
Yeah, some people got confused.
The primaries were Democrats and Republicans, but the independents, if you're an independent, then you're not going to be a Democrat or Republican, but you're going to be on the ballot in just a couple weeks.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, it's kind of pretty fast.
About 11 days from now. Yeah.
I mean, the whole year is like poof.
Plus, let me mention that this is important because a lot of people, after school gets out, we're in that period. Memorial Day weekend's coming up here in about
a couple hours, really.
18 hours, and people go out of town. And so, if you're going out of town, you're not going to be here on the 3rd of June. I would strongly encourage you to go down to City Hall from Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 to vote. You can go vote. It's pretty easy to do. Go in there and get your ballot and vote. And then if on Saturdays, it's open from the next 2 Saturdays. It'll be open from, I believe, 8 to 12 if they want to go vote absentee if you're going to be out of town. So make sure your voice is heard.
And for those of you who aren't, please vote. I mean, this is real pivotal for Jackson.
It is.
I think there's pretty good turnout for Jackson. I think, right? You think?
I hope so.
In the second primary, maybe. But
I mean, there was the fact is it was the developments that came in both the primary and the runoff in April, on the 1st of April and the 22nd of April, were big and very pivotal, but we still have the general election.
Yep.
So don't feel like you just ought to stay at home and or go out and whatever you need to vote again on the 3rd of June.
Absolutely. It's always the easiest thing that people can do for their communities is to vote. For heaven's sakes, you've got to do that.
Yeah.
And I can sit here and say that I do not belong to a city. I'm in an unincorporated area in Rankin County. I don't belong to anybody. So I'm not beholden to any of you all.
Yeah.
I mean, I work in your ward. Is this your ward?
Not anymore.
No.
Believe it or not, when we did the redistricting, one of the things we ended up doing was because the I-55 had been a clear barrier all the way down until we got to Northside Drive. But in order to get the more people into Ward 2, and we had to move the boundary for Ward 1 over to Ridgewood Road rather than I-20. So if you take Ridgewood Road, it goes all the way down to Reddick, and that's where it goes back to the interstate. And all that slice, thin slice that is mostly commercial,
that's where we are.
Goes over into Ward 2. So this is actually Ward 2 right now.
Because we're on the west side. This building's on the west side of Ridgewood. If we were across the street, you got that shopping center that has cons and all that. You've got that one, and we're across the street. Isn't that? It's crazy to keep it straight, but I know you absolutely have to. And when we went to break, you were talking about you do like the situation with the water. I mean, this is something too. I mean, every city in this country has got to have running water that you can drink, running water to wash your clothes, running water to go to the bathroom, and all that kind of stuff. And Jackson has had such trouble with all of that in recent years. And so this guy, Jackson Water, whatever they call themselves, is in place.
Yeah.
Third party, whatever. Are you happy with what they're doing? And I think obviously the point is to get to the point where the city supports itself like everybody else does with fees collected for water, and so you don't have to hire somebody. You can sustain yourselves. That is the goal, one would presume.
Yeah, so the primary objective of Jackson Water initially was to get the water system up running where it was reliable and people could trust the water, and it wouldn't have to go through boil water notices if there was some issue and the water plant went down for 12 hours or whatever it might be, and we didn't have enough staff there. The number of qualified operators had diminished, and the EPA was really, really upset with the administration. For 2.5 years, they'd worked with them on the emergency administrative order that they'd issued way back in February of 2020, and finally they became so upset. And then we had a big storm, high water event in August of 22, and the water plant failed. And they came in, and they were exasperated with the administration and their failure to follow the directions that the EPA had given them for over 2.5 years, trying to work with them.
Yeah.
And so when it went, and the state ended up taking over initially, the EPA got involved, the Department of Justice got involved, and so there was a big negotiation. In the final stage of the negotiation in November of 2022, they brought it to the council, and we had 48 hours to go through the 45-page agreement and then vote on that. And at that point, I was the president of the council at the time. We were able to make a negotiation to take the water billing part of the water department, which was going to be still left with the city, and that was one of the biggest hairballs in the whole city government.
Yes.
It was at the root of why we were so far behind in our finances. We had receivables were at like $35 million, where we were not collecting bills. The collection rate was terrible.
Well, you know what? One of those things I learned from Robert Miller was it got computerized.
Yeah.
And instead of just going from your house to the bill house, it had to that situation would be that the signal would go from here to a way station, and then it would go to another way station, then to another one, about 3 stops along the way before it got to anybody. And that was just ridiculous.
It was a giant,
insane.
The whole thing was a giant hairball from a paperwork standpoint, from billing, from collecting. We were just doing a terrible job. So the council was able to negotiate we'd go along with the other stuff if they took the water billing too. And so they accepted that. The DOJ attorneys and the EPA attorneys had to be brought into the loop on that. We accepted it on that day during the negotiation, and we moved forward. Now, so my one beef with the Jackson water operation now, I think they're doing a great job on fixing water lines all across the street, all across the city. They're now also overseeing the sewage as well, and they're doing an effective job there. But they still have a lot of work to do with the billing collections, and that's where you're going to really improve the revenue streams. And one of the reasons I voted against the rate increase that they brought to us, I guess it was about a month ago, was the billing rate still the collection rate's only about 70%. And that, I realize it's a problem. It's not easy to change, to track down all the people that are getting water that don't have accounts. And it's a problem that's, built up over years, over 50 years or however long. But it's something that's got to be dealt with. It's not fair to raise the rates on the people who've been playing by the rules all this time, when there are people out there that still aren't even, paying water bills or don't even have an account.
It takes footwork.
It takes footwork.
I mean, somebody's going to have to go door to door. I mean, you can't just do it by computer.
Right.
Things don't always work exactly the way computers do, and we know the problems with.
But there's still work to do. But I'm pleased overall. I'm very pleased with the reliability of the water system. That's the most important.
Yes. The other thing is, you mentioned about the sewers. There was a consent decree, and I'm sure it's still in place.
2013.
It's still in place, and people don't understand that. It's like sewers run lines through your neighborhood, and there will be dirty dirty sewer water coming through there. That's because the pipes they don't use the word leaching, but that's what it is. They're leaching out this dirty stuff, and every one of those pipes have to be replaced, which brings me to streets. Now, you got pretty good streets in Ward 1, don't you?
We've got some, but the city, and this is a constant conflict between the council and the administration. we have done a very poor job of deploying the money we set aside for streets, and I think that's primarily the administration's fault because we don't have a public works director, we don't have any engineers in the public works department. We've got so we've lost so many of our mid-level managers that were there that and we lost a lot of institutional knowledge when they left. And so one of the big challenges, one of the really top important challenges that the new mayor is going to face is bringing on a professional team of qualified engineers and department directors for the Public Works Department.
Will City Council vote on these people?
There's some of them will confirm the director of the Public Works Department, but others we've got to have the confidence so that qualified engineers will be excited to come work for the city of Jackson.
Would you request that City Council get knowledge of and question these people before they get thrown into the jobs? It doesn't say anything negative about the mayor; it just says something positive about the City Council to know who these people are.
Rather than try to okay every job, I would be more interested in just what is your staffing level right now? Where are we standing? Who are the how many candidates you have lined up to come help us with our engineering challenges?
Yeah, that's it. The challenge that I would think you'd want to know who these candidates are. Whether they have to be confirmed by council. You got to know who these people are because and that doesn't slap the new mayor, but that's just it's past.
It's an important task that
yes.
He can't just the people are tired of just talk. We've got to have action.
Absolutely. Well, it's coming up pretty soon, huh? 11 days.
That's right.
Any parting words? Because we're going to get out of here in just less than a minute. Parting words for...
It's an exciting opportunity for Jackson. We got to make sure we don't let it slip away.
Ooh, well said. Ashby Foote. That's a good one. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. Be safe out there. No drinking, no driving. Watch out for checkpoints. Belt your seatbelt up, for heaven's sakes. And have a good, safe weekend out there. And don't have boat wrecks and stuff like that either. So, all right, we'll see you next week, everybody. Have a good one.